Welcome to the latest edition of Breakfast with Bacon. I'm Doug Bacon, Managing Director of Throwing Words, and this is our regular podcast where we kind of share what we're learning. And we have excited about our guest today, Tim McCleary. Tim has an organization consultancy called the Involvement Practice, and we've known each other for a few years, and really excited to kind of share with you kind of what he's learned over this time. He's in kind of the direction they're going in. We're going to share a few tips when it comes to virtual meetings, virtual Zooms and that sort of thing. And then also learn some more about the work that Tim and his organization are doing. So Tim, welcome. Glad that you're here. Looking forward to our conversation, and would love to just jump in with just learning a little bit more kind of historically what your work has been. I mean, you have such an interesting background in terms of, big corporate work, but then you also let revealed recently that you have a commercial photography background. So we'd just love to learn a little bit more about you and kind of your work.
Yeah, great, Doug. Thanks for having me. Good to be with you. Yeah. So I started my career in communications and marketing, and eventually moved into brand management. This was a 20-year corporate career. And then made a switch 13 years ago and started the involvement practice to focus on the activation of culture and the internal activation of brand. Well, of course, when COVID hit in March, people were starting to put culture to one side and focusing things internally. So we shifted gears as well. We looked at what we do really well, which is around developing experiences for employees to go through to identify needs and be able to address those things within their culture. So we use that strength to then go and look for great technologies that would allow us to do what we would normally do, and switched into now a fully virtual setting.
Yeah, I'll tell you. So we worked together, getting my virtual setup here, and I tell you, it was just so easy. And so now I'm kind of looking around at the lights and the green screen, and just trying to imagine like how much time, how much effort that would have taken me to figure all this stuff out. And so just having that like one-stop shop where we had a conversation, and then we literally, we just went down the list of, you're going to need this, you're going to need that. And it was clear that, as you said, like you did a deep dive in terms of like, what is the best thing? And what doesn't surprise me, a couple of things about that. One is just how you were so wired for excellence. And so like, when I think about kind of what that employee experience is, and knowing you, and from, so we talk Strengths Finder, and, so Maximizer number one, and how, even back when we could be in offices and be in the same room together, just like your office space, just how intentional and thoughtful all of that is, to the virtual background that you have right now, which again is a shot that you took. And so there's just like that attention to drive towards excellence, but also having a lot of strategic thinking themes in terms of, learner, love learning new things, very strategic. And then as well as that futuristic, could really just kind of see a lot of those top strengths just kind of pop up for me as you're talking about those things. And say a little bit about, kind of what drove you to really get your arms around what's the right equipment, the right setup, and how you just kind of what that process was like for you.
Yeah, great, Doug. So it really started with once I shook off the reality that the business model was going to change, at least temporarily. Like so many business owners, I think that was a punch in the gut. We all had to take a deep breath, take maybe even a couple of weeks to get our head around it. I had one of our longtime clients call us from the Midwest and say, listen, we want to help our managers be better virtual managers. Mm-hmm. And so she said, would you put some curriculum together and deliver a virtual session? And in doing that, researching Zoom fatigue, and we did a piece of research that was across the country with 20 business leaders, really understanding what organizations were going through at this time. Mm-hmm. We realized that we had to have better virtual setups to run better virtual meetings. And so we spent 2 weeks researching, buying everything we could think of on Amazon, researching the best cameras, and all within, a reasonable price point, and how to set up the right kind of studio. You alluded to the fact that I used to be a commercial photographer years ago, so that skill set kicked back in. I haven't shot professionally as a photographer for a couple of decades, but I know how to light. So I was able to use that skill set to develop a virtual studio that anybody can set up within a 7 by 7 foot space in their home, and immediately have more impact in their virtual meetings, in the events that they may be planning and delivering.
Well, I'll tell you, all anybody has to do is go back like 2 episodes of Breakfast with Bacon, and you'll see the contrast, and it will be stark. I had a friend who gave me the feedback. He said, just kind of like how my setup was, and just kind of all the whole approach of the time. He was like, Doug, it's like you're the third axle on a 2-axle truck. So I was like, all right. And so now, of course, we have all that evidence to show, and can really see the contrast, both in the visual, but also the audio quality. I love that fact that it was, that it spoke to kind of the relationship, an existing relationship you had with a client, and it really was focused on how can we meet your need, and then, but being as strategic as you are, that kind of aware of how this could be the direction, and how this could be not just something you do one off with a client, but how you could really build a practice around this, and the impact of that.
Yeah, we're seeing a trend that a lot of people are struggling right now with virtual meetings. Zoom fatigue is a real thing. We're all suffering from it. And we have to be in tune with that. We have to know how to develop a meeting properly for this platform. A lot of the logistics, the normal logistics that anybody would think through to put a meeting together at a physical venue and bring people in, all those things still count. But what we have to focus on is the human touch side of a virtual meeting. And I think people forget that. They're used to just getting people into Zoom or another platform and just delivering content. And we can't do that. We have to create highly interactive experiences for people. We need to make sure we're building in time for them to get away from their computer and get up and stretch and think about what they've just been exposed to, and ultimately interact with each other. So there's some great platforms out there that we've been beta testing over the last several months. One good thing coming out of the pandemic is there's a lot of great technology emerging. We're not leaping at every new thing that comes at us, but we are finding the best stuff out there that fits a need that we see a client has, or that we know helps to enhance a virtual experience.
Yep. All right. So you mentioned kind of I love that, the human touch side, but also kind of think about interactive, think about time away from the computer. What are some other, just kind of some tips or just advice you would give somebody who wants to be more intentional about their virtual meetings?
I think the key thing is you've really got to have somebody producing your meeting for you. Mm-hmm. And it's something that gets lost in the mix. We've had more clients in the last several months say to us, our virtual meetings have been a disaster. Our feeling is we want you to do what you do really well. Mm-hmm. We're not the content experts. We want people to really play to their strengths. So what we provide is the production side of it, which means your guests come in, we welcome them, we make sure they're comfortable with the platform, they know how to use everything. We get them from a waiting room to a main room. We're behind the scenes making sure everything is going smoothly. And as you know, Doug, everything that seems to run smoothly is because there's a really detailed plan. So our production plans are very, very detailed, much like they would be if we were sitting in a ballroom somewhere, yeah, helping somebody run a meeting. So it's a couple of things. It's making sure you've got a really good, strong producer who knows the platform and knows how to get in there and mitigate the little things that are going to pop up with any kind of a meeting. And the other thing is having a really good, strong plan for how the meeting flows, what the objectives are, kind of the usual blocking and tackling when we're putting together bring people together and putting together an experience for them that creates a very specific end result.
Yeah. So it's kind of what I hear you saying is kind of applying that same mindset that you would for an in-person event where where the experience matters. So it's not like just, hey, pop on Zoom, hit a button, boom. I'm sitting on my sofa and my camera's going up and down as I breathe because my laptop's on my stomach. That's probably not a good advice. That's not a good tip. That's why I say that. But awesome. So yeah, very helpful. All right. So talk a little bit about what's here to stay versus will be gone once we have a vaccine and all those things. We can get back to whatever normal will be.
Yeah, that's a great question, Doug. So I think that the trends that we're seeing is that we're still going to be doing virtual meetings. We've proven the model out, and when I say we, I don't mean us at the involvement practice. I mean all of us are going to be continuing to do virtual meetings. We're going to start to see hybrid meetings where we've got a team that's sitting over in London, for example, and the rest of the team is in New York. And rather than flying everybody in together, we create an equal experience for both audiences. That the technology allows us to connect. We might have a live facilitator in both places, but we're realizing that we can save a lot on overhead costs, flying people in, hotels, meals, and still have these really robust experiences. So where we see it going is this hybrid approach to meetings is going to become something that is common. We're also seeing augmented reality and virtual reality. People have been talking about this for several years now. There still seems to be some barriers to getting there, and especially in a time of a pandemic where you can't be sending headsets out to people that haven't been properly cleaned, that sort of thing. But I do think we're going to see a lot more of that. And there's some cool technologies on the horizon that allow us to feel as though we're physically in a room together, passing objects back and forth and interacting on a whiteboard with sticky notes. And it's pretty exciting to see where things are likely to head.
Yeah, that's great. All right. So I know that the virtual studio setup is one aspect of the work that you're doing now, but say a little bit more about kind of just overall what you offer and how you work with your clients.
Yeah, so a lot of it is core, again, to what we've always done. When we understand what a specific need is that a client is trying to solve for, then we will design the experience for them. And it's really a question of the differences in being live in a physical venue and being in a virtual venue. Then our virtual production experience and skill set kick in. We're doing a lot of facilitation as well. So again, it allows the client to put their best foot forward, to focus on the content and the experience that they want their people to have. And we handle all the background from the design of the meeting to the production of the meeting to the facilitation of it.
Very cool. Tim, always love our conversations and appreciate your time, your expertise from my studio standpoint, and my mom and my childhood babysitter appreciate that too, for the quality of the podcast, the two people who watch it. And glad that you're here, and thanks again. And we will look forward to our next episode of Breakfast with Bacon, and want to say thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Doug.